Hey guys, welcome to this upload for you guys today. Thank you ever so much for tuning in and obviously hitting that play button as well. If you're new around here, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon so you'll be notified anytime I want to do any videos for you guys, as well as obviously check out the links down below via Linktree. That's where all my other social media outlets is. Now, as you know full well, I've always been honest against or for in professional wrestling for many, many years when I've done content for you guys. Yes, you guys. I'm literally speaking from the heart. I tell you the truth, how I feel, how emotions I feel. Because you know why I get this? Is because wrestling made me the way I am. You know, it's helped me over the years through like job interviews, let's say, or obviously doing this has helped me speaking to people that in queues, meeting professional wrestlers, meeting wrestling fans, sharing our memories, everything. I've met great people here as well as on TikTok, as well as Facebook. You know, because at the end of the day, you've helped me breathe every time. You know, and it feels weird that I feel like I'm adopted a part of your family. Yet, yes, you guys, I feel like I'm a part of your family because we've got our own sort of family, if you know what I mean. Even though we've got our blood family, this is our wrestling family. And when they're affected badly, it hurts me. And quite honestly, of seeing them being hurt, you know. And for WWE, you may think I'm just bashing them for the sake of bashing them when they make mistakes. No, I'm not saying it because I'm an AEW fanboy. I'm saying it because I see a lot of things that what goes off, and it hurts me seeing it. It's brought me to tears in the past, and I'm not being bullshitting or anything. It has brought me to tears in the past. You know, sorry if I look sweaty because obviously I've been sorting out the room, you know, sorting out, you know, so I do apologise. It's not exactly hot and warm and sweaty in my room. It's nice and cool, but it's just me. You know, I perspirate a lot, and I feel like I'm going into a dark, how to put it, a dark topic that I don't like talking about, but it has to be done. You know, so it helps my sanity. You know, I know it sounds daft, but I'm on about my wrestling sanity, not my personal life sanity. Although it does technically affect people that I know, you know, and quite honestly, I want to say to you guys is that it's affected the black community for many years. And the one thing that really fucking I hate at the moment, and I'm being honest with you, is black wrestlers not getting the rub as they should deserve, and the way WWE trying to justify them doing like Cody Rhodes is their champion. That's what you get in sort of thing because he's, if I remember rightly, he's Cuban descendant. So that's your version of your champion, what you're getting. You know, yes, you got Naomi as the women's champion. Fair enough. But the problem is where it lies, where you've literally done certain things over the years that I do not agree with at all because it's affected the black community as well as myself, you know, because at the end of the day I've got some brothers and sisters. I know that sounds like I'm being white trash when I say that, but I've got some brothers and sisters that are in that sort of community and they've been facing it day to day life and it's horrible for them. You know, I've seen how badly they've been affected. I've been brought up in the 80s. You know, I saw it day to day. I literally saw a guy literally got his face punnelled because of being black or Asian or something like that. You know, it's bad enough when you literally see these marches to get these people out of our country and everything. you know. And all I can say is to you guys is that UK would be boring, let alone probably your country would have been boring in the United States or Australia. You just think your cuisine that you know that is known for being British, you know, how boring that would have been, let alone English stuff. You know, we stereotypical do an English breakfast or an English muffin or something like on those lines. You know, just think how boring your cuisine would be if we didn't eat other people's from different countries. It's the same thing when it comes to professional wrestling, that we get that taste. Oh, that's a good word. That taste for their heritage, their background, and so on like that. And I'm one of those people that embrace it. You know, I accept anyone, whatever skin color they are. You know, it really frustrates me because I see so many people that I respect and they're getting trashed. You know, it's like professional wrestlers when they do make a stand, when the likes of another company like AEW, I think the reason why they get it right when they made Swerve Strickland, Shane Strickland, or whatever you call him, their champion at the time, they get it right because they're capitalising it. Because I feel like you look at the owner, Tony Khan, he's descendant of a heritage that understands that if you're not white, at the time I'm on about, if you're not white, he's getting a title shot. You know, anyone deserves a title shot, don't get me wrong. But obviously, yeah, fair enough. Kofi Kingston was WWE. Big E was WWE, but you gave the stereotypical names. Yes, we may say The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, was actually the WWE champion at one point because he's Samoan descendant. You know, obviously you had The Rock's dad being the tag team titles when racism was running rife and they turned the corner, turned the heads. They capitalised on what was wrong in the world and they were putting it right. But the catch is, they've had that and everything. But yeah, people can speak their mind. When Hulk Hogan passed away recently, they're entitled to their opinions. And people are shooting them down for their opinions. Oh, you shouldn't look into what Hulk Hogan's been up to or at being. All I can say is to you guys, why do you think we do what we do when we sit here in front of a camera, even in my bedroom at the age of 43, trying to preach to you about professional wrestling? Because we are passionate people. You know, doesn't matter whatever fucking colour we are. Because at the end of the day, wrestling gives us that escape from reality. Because you know the worst thing about it was, the biggest mistake that WWE ever did, other than recently bringing Brock Lesnar, which I'll literally fucking get onto that in a bit, was mixing reality with professional wrestling. You know, you may have started on those reality shows that with the likes of Total Divas, or recently you did it in Unreal. You pulled back the curtains so much, but then you didn't show so much. You should have shown the true side of professional wrestling. You know, when they say don't mix politics with wrestling, every wrestling company does, but WWE went to the full extreme now to say Triple H is working with Donald Trump. What's that say to you about the organisation that we know as WWE for many, many years? You know? For many, many years. You know? So, this past week it's been past couple of weeks have been a rocky road, but it was bad enough bringing Brock Lesnar back at SummerSlam. It overshadowed the great card they actually did pull off, even though I've said in my video they should have mixed the card up a lot better than they did. And with the rumours and speculations that WWE want to do more PLEs from next year, 2 nights, this is oversaturating the product. You're already bad enough, how to put it, trying to glamorise what you're doing with Saturday Night Main Event, let alone what you're doing with your PLEs, let alone what you're doing with NXT. You are trying to make money back on the company that you have lost out on. It feels like, to me, I'm waiting for Donald Trump to announce that he's an investor into TKO. Because the reason why I feel like, when you look at the bigger picture, when you think of the way Triple H is with the family friend, I'm waiting for the moment when he turns around and says, I'm investing to TKO because Triple H is working for me. I'll help them out. I'll pay the debt off. Why do you think they made so much money over the years? Because Vince McMahon literally had Donald Trump out of his hands because they are friends. Why do you think he gave him the helping hand? To help him push, to help towards making WWE a global brand. Because he could take over and buy companies out. He's bought already AAA out, which I still do not agree with. Is this the best you want to do for their company? Is buy out companies. I'm waiting for the day when TNA Wrestling gets bought out. I've been stressing this for a reason. Because the reason why they can't buy it out of yet, because of that debt. And the thing is, when you move to Netflix, yeah, you can watch it casually whilst you subscribe to Netflix, but the product has got poor. It's got less than what it was on WWE Network. I used to say, when you used to pay for the privilege to watch professional wrestling, like when it was on Sky Sports, the product was actually fucking amazing. Then you went to WWE Network, yeah, it was good to a point. Don't get me wrong, it was good. Now it's been crap, don't get me wrong, but then you look at the way you did SummerSlam. The way you did SummerSlam, you did the roster what works in, week out. You did it week in, week out. You've literally made fans boycott your product for bringing him back. I've seen the outcry. I've seen people in tears over this. You think wrestling runs deep in me when it comes to professional wrestling. You are mistaken. I respect every fucker in this world. Even if it's a woman that's been mentally abused, etc. like that. What this woman has actually been putting these allegations, but you could say until proven guilty to prove a point. But the problem is, you are brought him back at the wrong time when it's still fresh in people's minds. People are affected by this. Why do you think when they do storylines in soap operas, like here in the United Kingdom, I think they do it. I'm not sure if they do it in the United States because I don't have the privilege to watch United States TV. But they put a warning: if you're easily offended by or easily upset, we advise you not to watch this product. Then after the product that has been shown to the current market, they put a number out. If you're affected by current storylines or whatever, please call this number. I feel like, in a way, the reason why I'm looking at the bigger picture of it, this is the prime example of what WWE technically should do for their product. Not give out the product what they are giving out currently. Because WWE has made us think this way. Because you have made the reality era real reality. Not this glamorized stuff. I'm not saying I know how to book shows or I know how a show runs, but I've been there, done it, got the t-shirt sort of thing. I've been behind closed doors. I've got to know professional wrestlers personally, over the years. When Boys on Tour, why do you think we literally did Boys on Tour to get to be noticed? And this is a problem where it lies, where you literally have people literally acting like they're marking out or anything like that on camera to hope that WWE gives them more exposure. I'm the total opposite. I'm hoping to get the exposure by you guys that is fucking tuning into my product anytime when I do any uploads. I am grateful for that. But the thing is, when it comes to something like what WWE are doing right now is so much shady work. You've affected so many people that have bought the merchandise, you've bought into the tickets, you bought the programs, you bought the t-shirts. Speaking of the t-shirts, apparently Fanatics t-shirts are badly produced, even though the price you are actually charging for them. So Am I in the wrong to sit in my room to talk to you at the age of 43 to speak my mind about professional wrestling? No. If it affects people that I know, this is why I'm sitting here. They've made a stand, and literally, the old saying goes, if you're not happy with the product, don't watch the product. It doesn't work like that, because WWE or wrestling in general is basically programmed us to fucking do that, and it's not just WWE that has done that. You've actually had AEW put Access All Eras documentaries in the past. You know, you've got Cody Rhodes' reality show you've literally put out when AEW had that running. I think it was Crossing the Roads or something it was called. Him and Brandy Rose. You know? But the problem where it lies, when it comes to professional wrestling, you mix wrestling with real reality, you know full well it's going to happen. You know what else has not helped the wrestling industry in a whole? The internet. Not the fans. The people read dirt sheets, etc. That's why they find out their facts. But the problem is, when you see a professional wrestler, the likes of Hulk Hogan, the outbursts he's had over the 20 years, you know? Why do you think it's ruffled a lot of feathers? And people say, when I literally says, I respect the person 20 years prior. You know? But you can glam him up all you want as professional wrestling fans and saying, oh, he was the reason why I watched professional wrestling. Yeah, fair enough. You may say that. You may say that. You know, he may have helped a lot of people in the past, but the recent accusations and what he actually said himself, you know, that's what's tarnished professional wrestling. Because you literally want to see what you want to see on TV. A lot of the stuff you do not want to see. You don't want to see what they do in their personal lives, you know? Social media technically hurt professional wrestling as well, because that's the real reality. You see them heels and faces. We want to believe in the larger-than-life characters that we once had. And then when stuff gets leaked on social media, what's that say to you? You know, yeah, we know kayfabe's dead. Job well done. You keep saying that. Job fucking well done for preaching that to me. But you can say all you want, but it's easily affecting a lot of people. Like I've mentioned, the likes of Brock Lesnar coming back to the company. You think it's wise when it's fresh in people's minds? Let alone we see the reality side of things because of the way it's been portrayed on social media. Let alone what we haven't witnessed anything ourselves, but you can put a rubber band or a band-aid or plaster over what is shit in the wrestling world. But at the end of the day, we know full well the people that was brought up in the sort of eras that myself has been a professional wrestling fan since 1986. Right? 40 years next year is my anniversary of being a wrestling fan. I've literally went through thick and thin for professional wrestling. You know, I've never actually done it. Yeah, fair enough. I did one training session, took a bump. I know it fucking hurts. And it hurts me when I actually see people being hurt. But the thing is, though, when you literally say to people, if you're not happy, switch off. A lot of fans do that, and then as soon as they stick up for a company like AEW, they get a load of shit. We're taking your advice, guys. We're taking your advice. And when it's thrown back in your face, you don't like that advice. You know when they used to say people don't like change? I'm one of those people who want stuff to change at times. When it comes to professional wrestling, when it literally comes to personal facts, you know? I'm one of these people who didn't like back in the day, when people used to hype up the Attitude Era, how fucking great it is. A lot of it was trash, just to get the views in, to get people noticed, to use women as sex objects, to Mae Young to giving birth to a hand. You know? Most of that shit was done because the waiting, and then you look back at it and then look at Vince McMahon the way he is and these allegations against him. He's the one who's mixed real reality with the alternate universe of professional wrestling. He's a living proof of that. Until proven guilty, is it? We're going to use that, are we? You know, it really frustrates me. Yes, I'm sitting on my computer in my bedroom. Yeah, 34 subscribers, but I hope this gets viral and get people noticed. Because at the end of the day, if you want to talk to professional wrestling to me about it, fine. I'm happy to talk to people. I'm happy to meet people. I'm happy to interact with people, you know? But the thing is, right, when I was mentioning just then about the Attitude Era, I was so against Mike Tyson coming in the company. But yet he still has his fan base. Yeah, you can use the excuse that Brock Lesnar came back fucking Sunday night to a massive pop. Yeah, because it sounds loud on mobile phones. They're not professional cameras. You look at the way WWE did that. They made him sound like he had the massive pop of the night. That was a massive F5 to all the roster that put a clinic of a fucking night 2 compared to night 1. Right? That was a massive F5. Right? You know the trick of the trade? Changing the audio. Living proof. Look at the tribute they did to Hulk Hogan on SummerSlam night 1. You telling me, that when Hulk Hogan's music was played tinny, you really... very, very tinny, but it was perfectly fine throughout all the entrance music, but only when it was Hulk Hogan's. When Nick Hogan was on the camera. Because they were trying to change the audio so you don't hear the boos on the microphones. You know, that's what WWE do. They too obsess over changing audio. If they want you to believe what you want to believe. You look at the likes of Brock Lesnar, like I was saying. They turned the microphone up. They edited more sound in it. As it was going live, why do you think there's a 5-minute delay? So it gives them time to mute the swearing at the time. And yet you allow swearing on your Unreal documentary. You know? So you're telling me everyone was happy? No. When you see these viral clips that Brock Lesnar got a massive pop, it sounds louder on a mobile phone. It will sound massively loud because they're not got like a boom mic or one of these mics. Yes, I do not have one of those mufflers on it. So sometimes you might hear more decibels towards my voice than I normally give off. So you now are forcing people to like the reason why. And the thing is, when WWE gets bad, if anyone hasn't noticed or has noticed, Triple H does the blame game. He's been known for doing it for many, many years. Right? If he's made a bad decision and fans have reacted to that bad decision, prime example, right? You look off that sort of press conference release, etc., like that. Fans were chanting, "We want Cross." What happens? He glamorizes it, changes it. Yes, I'm glad you're happy that Brock. What are you listening to? Your own delusional mind at times? You know? You've lost channel towards what wrestling fans really want. But that's just an example of things what Triple H has done over the years. But he'll take full credit when it goes right. You know? And it doesn't help boosting his ego when people used to say, "Oh, he's booked solid shows. He's great in all that lot of booking shows." We're going to have a rejoice now. Vince is gone. Now Triple H and Stephanie is involved in the booking team. We're going to have great storylines. Where have they technically been great storylines? And yet, the wrestlers you put over, the thing is, he's not, I've said this in a video, right? If he transitioned from what he did for the black and gold era to the main roster, fair enough. It would be great. But technically he's doing that because he's putting over his friends that he's made over the years in the black and gold era. You know? I've stressed this, if I remember rightly, in my Night 2 review. Lyra should have won the Women's IC title, and what you got now? Oh look, Nikki Bella's back. You know? Don't get me started on Nikki Bella. She's the prime example. She's the female Brock Lesnar. What she actually did to her husband. I'll go there. Because mental health is actually real. She mentally abused her husband. She beat up her husband, etc., etc., etc. And people may think, oh, no one's talked about it. I've done a TikTok on this. She's no better than Brock Lesnar. You know, because the reason why men have that stigma, that are scared to speak out, and there's a lot of men's mental health going around at the moment, because of this reason, because of the generation have always been saying for many, many years, from the era that I brought up. I don't know what generation I'm classed as. X, Y, Z, ABC, 1, 2, 3. I don't give a fuck. But all I can say is, people like me were brought up to... We were actually the stronger sex as many years. You may class me as a sexist bigot for saying that. So be it. But we've been known for that. But hear me out. Hear me out. But we've always been told to man up. You know? It sickens me. Being brought up in that sort of generation to think that people can tell us to man up. You know, why do you think all of a sudden, right, there's a lot of awareness, men's mental health awareness, overshadowing what women's mental health is, even though they're on the same level? Because we were scared to speak up. Because if we told certain people and that lot, like our friends or someone like that, I'm not saying my friends, but I'm using this example, we were scared to speak up and turn around and say, my wife is beating me up. I'm not married, by the way. This is what I'm using an example before people think it. And they used to laugh and they would say, man up, you're just a pussy. You know, that's just using an example. You know? And now you got Nikki Bella back on our screens. Creative have got something from her. And you're using the excuse. She used the excuse her breast implant moved. Good. And you know who she's blaming for that? Piper Nevin. Viper. This is what is speculated because she took an elbow to that. Now, if I don't agree how they're treating Piper Nevin, Viper. I do not agree how they're treating her on the main roster. You're treating her as a security woman. Having matches, yeah, fair enough. You're pretty much fat shaming. That you may, and you put two Scottish women, two strongest women that we've had from the Scottish region. In Emma Fire or whatever her name is, I do not care. But all I can say is she's still Kaylee Ray to me, goddammit. And same as Piper. You know? They were two fantastic female athletes and look how you are treating them. Because they're different. You know? Sometimes it's great how you use them, but sometimes it's not. You know, it really... She's doing it for Chelsea. They're doing it for Chelsea Green, granted. It's working, don't get me wrong, to a point. But the thing is where I'm getting at is... the worst thing is, if you claim that she's actually injured Nikki Bella because of her breast implant or whatever it was, using that fucking excuse, you probably not see her on TV anymore. Or not do something with Piper Nevin. You know, it really frustrates me. It does frustrate me. You can see it. The thing is, when it comes to politics in wrestling, I hate it with a passion. That's one of my drawbacks. As you can tell for many years when I've actually sat here talking to you guys. Like, I even talked to you guys for nearly 30 minutes to say my piece on certain things. You know? But you shouldn't have made real reality in professional wrestling. You know, I miss the larger than life characters. I'm not going to say take your vitamins and say your prayers, because that's so generic. When Rowdy was rowdy, when was cool, or whatever it is. You know? You literally, like I mentioned earlier on, you capitalised what was popular at the time and not popular at the time. Look at the likes of Sergeant Slaughter, the storylines that you put him through. When it was all popular, what was in the news and everything like that. This was before the days of social media. He had balls to pull that off. He was, yeah, fair enough. I'm not disrespecting the guy, but it felt like he said yes to everything just to keep his job so he could put food on the table. But the thing is, what I don't get about TKO when I was mentioning the likes of Brock Lesnar, you say you're in that much debt, right? You're putting yourself more in debt to pay Brock Lesnar to come back. He doesn't deserve a big paycheck. He needs to be paid a reasonable paycheck. Stop focusing on these part-timers that are coming in the company. You know? Focus on the people that are doing day in, day out for you. From the house shows to the PLEs, to the SmackDowns, to the Raws, to the NXT, to Saturday Night Main Event. The amount of wrestlers I know full well, I feel like they technically have lost their smile for the WWE. You can clearly tell. Even though they're trying to passionate and all that lot, but the way you've treated your roster. The way you've treated your roster bringing these part-timers in all the fucking time. Why do you think CM Punk technically left the company? He didn't want to work with the likes of The Rock back in the day. You know? Because he didn't feel right working with these part-timers. Why do you think the pipe bomb? But then all of a sudden you glamorise it and turn around and says, oh, it was a matter of clash of egos technically because me and Triple H, he was a main eventer, he was a full-timer, then all of a sudden he was a board of directors and CM Punk was not taking orders from him. You know? It's mental to think this was the guy that shot the WWE down. Same with Cody Rhodes, shot WWE down. I think Drew McIntyre did it as well. I can't remember if he did or didn't. I do apologise if he didn't. But the evidence is still on the internet. You know, the evidence is still on the internet. It just bugs me to the point where I think fans have just had enough. You know, I've been interacting with so many people over TikTok. Obviously, if I interact with people on Facebook, you know you're going to get the same old fucking dribbling shit. So, you're just saying this because you're an AEW fanboy. No, I'm a wrestling fan. But I don't agree with a lot of things in wrestling world. I don't agree with a lot of things. You know? You look at the AEW sort of scenario. I loved how the EVPs, the Young Bucks, Nick Jackson and Matt Jackson lost their titles as EVP, even though they're still EVPs. But I loved that kind of storyline, but they're still getting through the tag team tournament towards obviously getting probably a tag team title shot at Forbidden Door. I do not agree with whatsoever there. You know, when I say about WWE doesn't push their younger talent, they haven't. They've literally doing the black and gold era in the main roster to a point. Triple H is picking his favourites to a point. You know, you look to what AEW do. They are not picking their favourites at all. They're relying on the fans' feedback, and that's why people are lapping this up. You know, one match I'm looking forward to at Forbidden Door. 2 ethnic backgrounds, one from Japan, one from America, black and Japanese. You know, it's something different. We've not seen that in professional wrestling for many years. You know, You look at... That's not me sticking two fingers up at you guys. It's just me stretching my fingers out. But you got to realise, I'm not saying you have to like AEW for what they do, or you like WWE for what they do, or you don't like it, etc., etc., etc. But end of the day, that's why I say wrestling this day and age is such a hard thing to get into. And that's what people have got to realise. It's such a hard sports entertainment because of certain things that happens in the wrestling world. You know? What's next? WWE going to bring Vince McMahon when John Cena's final match and waiting for a hug at the top of the on the stage, waiting for it to give him comes out, give him a hug for what he's done and his accomplishments over the years of being a professional wrestling fan. I mean, professional wrestler. I don't mind certain things, but you look at the likes of John Cena. Right? I don't think he's exactly squeaky clean as he makes out, but he brags about the heritage he was brought up around and everything. Granted, that's why he went into rap music. He broke the mold. That's why people liked him, because he's multi-cultured, you know. But the catch is, right, I'm not just a heel run. I'm not liking the run that he's having at the moment, because I feel like you are missing the plot holes in your storyline, let alone all he's facing is older wrestlers. That's why I mentioned earlier on, I wouldn't mind the likes of Karrion Kross that came out instead of the likes of Brock Lesnar. It would have made more sense, and you would have thought, you wouldn't think, because you look at the way Karrion Kross has been treated, you know, it proves they're not listening to the fans. They're doing whatever they want just to plough down our throats to make us believe in what we want to believe in. And their Karrion Kross and Scarlett's contract is up this weekend. He's a prime example of what I'm trying to say to you guys as wrestling fans. That's why I feel like the match didn't deliver at SummerSlam, because there was don't care attitude sort of thing. You know? There's a lot more than meets the eye. But the problem is we don't see what technically goes on backstage, even though WWE have panned out they do show everything. You know, we don't see everything. A lot of that is probably all cut out. But you got to think logically, right? They're making these larger than life characters that we want to believe in to give our escape from reality. You know, you can't escape reality, because end of the day, you technically glamorize what was backstage in that documentary, but you don't show the true side of what certain wrestlers are. You know, you don't show technically their personal life. Yes, you've shown Cody at home with his daughter putting Christmas decorations on. What's that has relevance to anything really? Nothing. You know, I don't agree with a lot of things in professional wrestling. It's not just WWE. Why do you think I started up a YouTube channel? Other than when I first started, I was reviewing people that talk about professional wrestling, granted. And then I spoke my mind about professional wrestling. Why do you think my first channel, Gav I Not, says, yeah, should be bigger than it should be, as people said when I was doing what I was doing. I spoke my mind when I was talking about TNA. I got death threats, you know, because I'm supporting another wrestling company. And you were the people that told me if I'm not happy, watch something else. So I did. So that's the problem where it lies. You have been programmed to watch, not my videos obviously, you are programmed what to believe in. Because WWE are the ones that broke the mold and made it reality shows, etc. like that, and you believe in everything what they have thrown at you. Then you obviously see these reports on dirt sheets and everything, personal stuff getting involved. Dark Side of the Ring, for fuck's sake, watch that. That's an eye-opener, how much Vince McMahon was. And the catch is, the one thing that really makes me laugh when people say to me about, oh, I shouldn't be one of these people that talks bad about Brock Lesnar. But you were the same people that badmouth Vince McMahon. And the catch is, you won't accept what Brock Lesnar's done, but you accept what Vince has done. It's like when the Vince McMahon documentary, that's an actual documentary. You know, you literally didn't mention anything towards about Vince McMahon on the Unreal documentary, but when it came out on the Netflix documentary, when they were running Vince under the bus, and we're literally sitting there watching it unfold, and we're literally like, tell us something we don't know already. But you won't accept the fact until proven guilty about Brock Lesnar, and yet Vince is still waiting until proven guilty. You get what I mean? So that's what I mean. It really, really frustrates me when I see certain things that happen in the wrestling world. You know, I don't believe everything the fucking dirt sheets say, don't get me wrong. But I believe in the people that react to certain things that we get wind of. And it's not just me. You know, YouTube may be a dying breed when it comes to professional wrestling, people that talk about professional wrestling. You know, in good light or bad light. I see it as a dying art form because I don't see that many people that talk about it, but TikTok is full of them. You know, the thing that really baffles me the most, I'm not disrespecting them, not being sexist, but you go girls. When I first started here on YouTube, they were just grading professional wrestlers the way they looked. You know? Men, treating them like sex objects. But I couldn't say anything back in 2010. I couldn't say anything. Because I'm classed as sexist if I say anything. You see what I mean? But how much times have changed when people are women, trans, men, whatever you identify, if you love professional wrestling, don't be ashamed to talk about it. And do not be ashamed to talk about your opinions. You know, I love the fact that I've met so many great people doing this. You know? Yes, I may have got in arguments over professional wrestling. You know? But remember, when you literally are reading something, you determine it in your own mind how your perception of professional is. No one can change that because you're stuck in your ways. It's a human fact that people are stuck in their fucking ways. When it comes to professional wrestling, they read something, it's like reading a text. You can assume what that text means, but you don't know how to express your feelings in a text, even though it's in a text form. If that makes any sense to you? I'm hoping it does, because it made sense to me. And I'm just saying it with raw emotion to you guys. I'm not going to sit here and cry about it, about Brock Lesnar. But like I said to you guys, it affects people in different ways. Let them have their say. Because at the end of the day, you don't realise what's gone off in their personal life could relate to certain things. You know? It just baffles me. It really baffles me the way how tables are turning. And it's the thing is, that's what I mean. It's like you look at the creative direction, such as WWE, the creative direction. You may glamorize up, yeah, Triple H is the main boss. But so far I've noticed what happened in that documentary. Michael P.S. Hayes literally took reign of most of the final decisions. You know? You know, it's mad to think that you build up certain wrestlers up. You know? It proves that you don't know what to do with main event Jey Uso, for fuck's sake. You're literally putting him back with Roman Reigns. You know? You look at that match on SummerSlam. With them getting the victory, didn't add anything towards the tag team division. Let alone, you should have had the likes of Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker win that match and make them dominant going through the tag team division on the likes of Raw and head towards the tag team titles. If you've literally let Seth cash in after CM Punk, right? I feel like CM Punk, the reason why they cashed in on him, yeah, fair enough, he's getting a big paycheck and all that. Like, you could say storyline after storyline, making sugarcoating excuses. But we know full well that CM Punk took shots at WWE for many, many years. And that's the reason why Seth cashed in. Because he's one of Trips' love childs, his favourites. But the catch is the history repeats itself. When Vince was in power, he had all his favourites. You know? To make you follow these favourites. Why do you think John Cena got big as he did? Why do you think Hulk Hogan got big as he did? Why do you think Cody Rhodes technically got big as he did? It's WWE programming you to make him bigger than he is, even though he made it himself big back on the independents. Same with the likes of Drew McIntyre or Drew Galloway, whatever you want to class him under. You know, so many people have left that company, gone back. Not many people can do what the likes of Cody Rhodes can do because WWE have something created for them. But then when you literally look like of Braun Strowman as a prime example, you got rid of him again. You brought him back technically for no reason. It felt like it. Blink of an eye, he was there. You know, it's mad to think you've done Wyatt 6 without one of the surviving members. You know, the leader. Yeah, I know Bray Wyatt passed away. God rest his soul. Why do you think he was such a genuine person with his fans? Because he respected the fans who paid to see him, to pay to get his autograph, or stalk him at a hotel, etc., etc., etc. Because you think it was WWE that made him relevant? No, Bray Wyatt made himself relevant. But it's weird to think when you look at it at the moment, how bad WWE's got with certain things that's going off, and it's not going to put him in a good light at all. Absolutely not a chance. You know, that's why it upsets me. That's why I'm sitting here on this video talking as long as I have. It's good to talk. You know, if they tell you to shut up, people tell you to shut up because you don't see it the way they do. No. Speak your mind even more. Piss them off even more. Do what you have to do to show your fandom. You know? And let alone, it proves how much WWE fell off the wagons. Right? They did this Netflix deal that I mentioned earlier on. To get all that money, where's that all gone? You can say investments into venues and booking venues, etc. Use any excuse under the book. But I just want to say this. If WWE is big as they once was, you know, you would have more people tuning into that product as much as you did. But the thing is, yeah, fair enough, it's on different platforms. I get that. UK enough to get the platforms that it's on, just on Netflix at the moment. But certain things we do not get here in the United Kingdom that you get in the United States. But what I'm saying to you guys is, it proves how many people have actually fallen off the wagon from WWE. You know? And I do not blame them. Because it's like when people tuned in to likes of AEW, you know full well Dean Ambrose, John Moxley, whatever you want to class him as, he had his fan base follow over. They're true wrestling fans. You know, to follow a wrestler. You know, it's like saying with me being a Manchester United fan, I'm a Man U fan. Do I see when it comes to reference to being a wrestling fan, you don't go, I'm a WWE fan. No, people always say I'm a wrestling fan. Okay, you watch all wrestling. No, I just watch WWE. So you're a WWE fan. And they go, no, I'm a wrestling fan. How are you a wrestling fan when you're not watching other wrestling companies? You know? So a lot of people, when they've said that old saying like I've mentioned already, if you're not happy, turn off. They've turned off. They're watching other companies. As soon as they watch that other company, they literally turn around and shunned it. It's weird to think, like I've mentioned earlier on, I used to support TNA. I fell off the wagon of, not that's all wagon, if you get what I mean, that catchphrase. I fell off the hype train towards TNA because I literally started working at nights, and it was on the nights that I was working, and I couldn't keep up with it. And by the time I got home and watched it, I don't mind spoilers on the internet at this day and age, but it used to frustrate me when I used to talk about all wrestling, you know. And it's just mental to think. But that's my thoughts, guys. I do not blame people when they're boycotting a company that does not support them because they've invested so much time, money, effort to watch that product, to promote that product, and then when something goes negative, it hurts a lot of people. No matter if it's race background, being a victim of, or witness family members or friends that's been a victim and so on. You know, why do you think it's still fresh in people's mind? And that's just my thoughts and opinions. Tell me yours. I've talked to you nearly an hour now. I know it's like 51 minutes, but I hope you understand. Thank you for listening, guys.